Hi, it's Dia. Today we're going to take this picture, which is a line drawing by Pablo Picasso of Igor Stravinsky. And it's famous today because of a book by Betty Edwards, and it's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. Now, I flipped that image upside down because when we draw, we primarily use the right side of our brain, and people get sort of hung up on drawing. I can't draw. So what we're going to do here is flip the image upside down, cover most of it except for 1 inch, and all we're going to do is recreate the lines. Now what this does is it takes the preconceived notion, first of all, of that we can't draw this beautiful picture. And second of all, it breaks it down into really simple spaces. So all we're doing here is copying a few lines here and there. This image looks simple, but it's deceptive. It's actually relatively complex. So if we look at it all at once, most of us will just say, I'm not Picasso, I'm going to put that over there. But if we do like I'm doing now, turn the picture upside down and cover it, and then only reveal little bits at a time, that's acceptable to us somehow. And we can copy those pieces. So what I'm doing now is the second portion. You can't really tell half the time what you're drawing. So as you're looking at it, all you're trying to do is put those lines and curves in the right places. And rather than saying, "Oh, I have to draw this part of the chair," or like me, I am terrible at perspective. If I really think about it and look at it, it takes me forever. So this allows us to incorporate the perspective in the picture without blocking ourselves first, because we don't even know what we're drawing. Now, why I'm showing you all this is I want to see if this translates into a more solid colored image. Line drawings are very light and airy for the most part. I mean, there's times when you get into cross-hatching and a lot of different techniques, and there's a lot of shadow, but this picture is truly a line drawing. So we can just look at it for what it is. Now, I lowered that paper, and I know this is the area where we have to do hands. So there is panic in my heart because hands and feet are the bane of my existence when I draw. So I'm going to try not to look or even go there. I'm just going to attach each line to each curve and each bend and just see how it comes out. Now what I did was I went on Google and I just found the picture of Stravinsky by Picasso, and I reduced it a little bit just because for me things are easier when they're tiny or smaller anyway. And I just jumped right in, flipped it upside down, covered it with a couple of pieces of copy paper, and just did 1 inch at a time. The book that I mentioned before, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards, is based on work by Dr. Roger Sperry. And he actually was a Nobel Prize winner and neuropsychologist and neurobiologist. He worked on studying the lateralization of work that we do in the brain, meaning the left hemisphere is analytic, verbal. For example, in Betty's website, it says the perfect example of left hemisphere work would be balancing your checkbook. She writes, "We don't want to create, I'm sorry, we don't want creative, intuitive checkbook balancing. We want step-by-step, verbal, numerical, sequential analysis. And then she writes, for the right-hand side of our brain, the perfect example of that would be facial recognition, because we don't analyze a face. We don't look at the eyes and say, those are eyes, and then look at the nose and say, that's a nose. We don't have to do that in any kind of sequence or order to recognize the face of a friend or someone that we know. The recognition, she writes, is instant, visual, and global all at once. So I was thinking maybe the trick to drawing is to completely bypass the left side of the brain and possibly even our thought patterns of, I can't do this is too hard, and it's like a preconceived notion set of things that's blocking us, and see if we can just, like I said, bypass the left side and tap right into that right side, which is more creative and spatial, and see if it applies to coloring later on in this video. There are also some other methods, and I can't remember if they were from the artist's way or drawing on the left on the right side of the brain. And the other experiment is, let me think how this went. Okay, there was one that was upside down. Oh, and there was one that you should try to draw something with your undominant hand. So if you're right-handed, try to draw the thing with your left-handed. And there's another experiment where draw something completely with your eyes closed. So they were all very interesting, and I think I'm going to do another video about those because I don't have everything set up right now, but they just popped in my head, so I think those will be interesting too. So as I was doing this video, I realized that I made a few mistakes. There were lines that didn't exactly match the dimension of the other line, or I made it too thick or too thin or too wide, and I just left it because it was close enough, and I honestly just wanted to see what this was going to come out like at the end. If you look up Igor Stravinsky, not the Picasso image, but an actual picture of him, it's shocking how close this image by Picasso is of Stravinsky. I don't know how people make people look like themselves in images. That is not my forte. Some people can just literally look at somebody and draw it. Not my thing. Now, you'll see at the end, my Stravinsky is not exactly like Picasso's, but it looks like him. It's crazy. I put the rest of this on double time, so you can watch it if you want. If not, you can speed it up even more yourself and go to the part where I'm going to color a strawberry. And I wanted to do a little version of it in coloring because I think it's going to be different. Line drawing is very different from coloring or doing an image that has shadows, depth, and shape to it. I'm also a little bit scared to do the head because obviously you can't get to that part and not know what you're drawing. You'll see lips, even though they're upside down. You'll see eyes, his glasses, and I'm going to just try to separate myself. I hope you guys try this too, because I want to see what you think, and I want to see if this was hard for you or easy for you. For me, it made me wanted to try it again with something different and possibly a little more complex. I would love to see what you end up doing too. So I pulled the paper down about an inch for his head, but it was too much because then I would be actually drawing the whole head and I'd have that whole image too much. So I shortened up the area a little bit and started to draw those basic lines and connections again to the curves. and that also helped. So not knowing what I was drawing helped the picture. Now this image, like I said before, is just lines. And what we're really drawing is just the edges of the picture. And that's sometimes referred to as contour drawing. There are no real light and shadows in this image, except for maybe his hair. His hair, you can see, is a bit darker, but even that isn't really shaded. So this is a very basic and simple test. There's a lot more to drawing, and that's for another day. Okay, now I turn it upside down, and it's not perfect, but it looks like the picture. Mine is wider. His head is a little smaller and a little bit misshapen, but it's crazy how that came out relatively, like you can recognize that it's Igor Stravinsky and it was drawn upside down. So now I'm going to try to apply this to an image from the buns, and I'm going to be coloring this strawberry upside down. So I am going to use a picture and draw from the picture. So rather than just coloring the whole area, I'm going to see what I can learn, and I'm going to turn my paper upside down too and give it a shot. I used Polychromos pencils, Prismacolor, and a couple of hero pencils, and I will list them below. So if you want to stop here and gather the pencils if you're going to color with me. So the first thing I noticed was a lot of different things. When I looked at a strawberry before, I noticed it was a red strawberry. Now when I'm looking at the strawberry and trying to break it down into smaller pieces, I noticed that there were dark areas around the seeds. Meaning darker areas than the whole strawberry. So those areas were indented a bit, so the red of the strawberry looked a little bit darker. And I used middle cadmium red. Oh, no, I didn't use middle cadmium red at first. When I was first doing it, the darkest one I used was deep scarlet red, and then later on I even went darker and went to the middle cadmium. What would be the top of the strawberry looked a different color to me. So it almost looked like a tomato red, so I got scarlet red and I colored the top. Also, what was interesting, it no longer looked like a flat surface. It looked like the darker areas were all connected. No, not darker. The brighter areas were all connected, and then the little darker areas were indented. And then there were certain areas that were pure white, and I left those, and those ended up to be highlights. And then there were even pinks and nectar colors that I never really noticed in a strawberry before, and were possibly impeding some of my work from looking realistic. So this was very interesting, and I don't know why they don't teach this in every art school. I think in the past a strawberry would have been relatively easy. Oh, that's a pink that I used because suddenly I saw fuchsia in the strawberries also. It made the interestingly enough, drawing it upside down made it more complex and more simple at the same time because I saw it in a completely different way. And I wanted to recreate what I saw. I didn't do it perfect, but I wanted to draw what I was seeing. And it's so interesting because once again, our preconceived notions, when we look at a strawberry, it's a little red fruit with a green stem or little leaves on top, and maybe it has a few, I don't know, sandy colored berries. And that's what we go in and do. So this made me see it differently. I also got confused at first because I didn't quite know what I was seeing. Yes, there were little areas that were dark, but the areas on what would be the top of the strawberry were sort of more concave, and one side was darker than the other because there was a shadow coming. And then as the berry, well, not as the berry, but the bottom part of the berry sort of, curves in. So that part had a different kind of, or different shaped shadow around the outside, and you really have to look. So there were highlights and lowlights, and what I'm doing right now is just trying to recreate what I'm seeing, and I'm going back and forth between scarlet red, permanent carmine, middle cadmium red, and deep scarlet red. I also used a pale vermilion, and I never did this before, but I actually found myself trying to match the color of the tip of the pencil to my reference photo, because when you're looking at it, it all looks red or it all looks pink, but it's not. And I think that's what helps it become more realistic. So right about here, I was feeling a little confused. I didn't know whether I liked doing this enough or if it was worth it, because it didn't look like a strawberry, and using this pink color seemed, I don't know if it's counterintuitive, but using pink rose on this picture just, I don't know, it looked very strange to me, but it matched this part of the strawberry in the reference picture. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. And like we were talking about before during the Stravinsky picture, I'm not going to have preconceived notions, and I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to do it. And then it started to look even worse. And I wasn't trying to make it look like a pale pink strawberry. I wanted it to look like a bright strawberry like the picture. And it wasn't working. Or, you know what? I was thinking it wasn't working, but then I was surprised in the end. So hang in there. So I made this a little faster, just because here I was kind of going back and forth, being confused. It wasn't looking like anything, and it was just trial and error. Well, I don't even know if it was error, just because I was just trying to draw what I was seeing. And I didn't feel like there was any pace to it. You know, when you're coloring something or you're drawing something, you kind of get into a groove. That never happened here. Up to this point, it was feeling really awkward, and it was looking really awkward too. But I still kept trying to recreate what I was seeing. And then all of a sudden, right about here, I was like, oh, those light areas are suddenly looking legit, or more legit anyway. It's not perfect, and it never will be perfect on this image, as you'll see at the end. And I should have left more of them, but when I turned it right side up, I kind of went back to filling it in, and I ruined it. Well, not ruined it, but I made it more regular. And right here, I didn't even realize it because I couldn't see it because it was upside down, but it was going in the right direction. So I'm still kind of, not dumbfounded, but I'm really surprised at what I learned doing this upside down thing. I would never have chosen these colors if I was, well, I don't think I would have anyway. I think I would have had, once again, a preset thing in my head. And the colors that this allowed me to do this funny matching made it look more realistic. So yeah, strawberries can have pink in it and peach nectar in it, and it becomes something very non-flat when you do it this way. I would really recommend trying this. Find a picture, and even if you do it the first way, meaning find the Stravinsky picture and give it a shot, because I think you'll surprise yourself. I'll put the information below for the artist's way and drawing on the right side of the brain. And I'll even put a link for a picture for the Stravinsky image by Picasso. And all the colors I used, because I am just going back and forth. And this is just the stem and the little seeds. So I hope you like this video. I found this to be really interesting. I do have more experiments to come, and if you like these experiments, tell me below or give me a thumbs up. I hope you subscribe to me. Oh, also, I'm doing a giveaway with Anne right now. If you're viewing this in May of 2008, before the last day of May, I'm still doing the giveaway, so I'll put that link below also. Yeah, so if you like this, hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell also, because that'll notify you, and then you won't miss a thing. So in this part, I'm just going to be fussing around a bit with the stem and the little leaves that are on top, which really I wasn't really focusing on during the video. So I'm just adding some detail here. So I added some black shadow underneath the leaves and some darker greens. So right about now in the video, I kind of felt like I had the hang of it. I could see the strawberry more for what it was. I could see the darks and the lights, and I was getting used to actually matching the tip of the pencil to the reference photo, and I was really having a good time. It felt like I was doing something completely new and interesting. So here I got to look at it for the first time. It wasn't perfect, so I did the it's okay. It's not colored perfectly, but it has depth, it has highlights, and that was pretty interesting. So I would give it a whirl. Oop, now I'm taking, I think that was the pale vermilion, yes. And I'm just going over some of those areas and connecting them, meaning the highlights and the lowlights, so it looked a little bit more smooth. And that's basically what I do for the rest of the video. I took away some of the pure white highlights accidentally, and I guess I could go back in there with a Signo pen and bring them back, but I didn't want to. I just kind of wanted to do it with the pencils and upside down. So once again, I hope you like this video. Oh, before I stop, that was middle cadmium red, and I did end up going back into those areas surrounding the seeds, and I made them darker, and I did like that effect. It made it more realistic. One last bit of pink rose. You know what else this made me realize? Prismacolors and Polychromos are so different. I love them for different reasons, but they are so different. So I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one soon. Thank you so much. Bye.